Okay. So again, the carb is given according to this sample problem. The carb is given, so you have 2x squared plus 4x plus y is equals to 0, and x plus y is equals to 0. So this is the carb, while this one is the line. Previous courses in mathematics, there are different types of areas. If you are to draw the figure, or if you are going to draw the figure here, this one is the Cartesian coordinate system. So the Cartesian coordinate system has a figure given that x and y. So you have the x and y axis. And if you are going to draw the figure for the plane areas, which is drawn, bounded by the curve, this one is the curve that we are talking about. And this one is the curve that we are talking about here. And of course, you have here the line. Let me go back to, let me just clear all my drawings here. Let me go back to the previous, there. So if you are going to draw again, you have the Cartesian coordinate system. This is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. Remember that if you are to draw a line, you've got to have 2 points which are to be connected to one another. So the 2 points shall be connected, and then you would be able to draw the line. So if this is the line that we have here, okay, we've got to point out, or to plot, I mean, the points which are to be connected in order to produce that line, or in order to create that line. So we have here x sub 1 and y sub 1, and you have x sub 2 and y sub 2. So that means we have 2 points. The first point x sub 1 and y sub 1, and then the second point x sub 2 and y sub 2. And then of course you have here the carb. Okay, so this one is drawn, and this is the carb line. Okay, so this is how you draw the plane area. Now, if the question is, what is the area that is bounded by this line and by this carb? Okay, so that means we have to determine this area. Okay. The area bounded by this line and by the carb. If you are going to determine that particular area, all we have to do is to make use of an element. So that element will be used to represent this one. This is the element that we are talking about. This element will be used to represent the area that we will be determining. So this area is bounded again by the line. Okay, this is the line. I'm sorry for that. This is the line. And then of course you have this would be the carb diagram. So if you're going to go back into your previous courses, you would notice na encounter niyo na 'to, 'di ba? Anong subject ito? Anong course itong na-encounter niyo yung ganitong klase ng figure? Anyone? May naaalala pa ba kayo sa inyong previous na? So this area This area shall be determined with the use of elements. Okay. So that element is represented by this figure. You have dx, and of course you have dx as the width of the element, and then of course you have the height of the element. So if you are going to set this one as the location of y sub 1, kasi hindi natin alam kung ano yung value ng y sub 1. And then ito naman is the location of y sub 2, kasi hindi rin natin alam kung ano yung y sub 2. We have yet to determine kung ano ba yung mga values niyan. So if you are going to represent the element, meron kang element dito na d is dx. Okay. So this dx is the element width. Variable yung width nung element. Kasi simula dito hanggang doon ang width nung element. Pwedeng maging ganon. Okay? So in other words, from a minimum to a maximum value, hahanapin natin yung area. Minimum to a maximum value of dx para mahanap natin yung area. Okay? And then of course, nagbabari din yung height. Depende dun sa position ng element. So that height, if you are going to notice, ito yung equation na yon. You have y sub 1 minus y sub 2. Okay? Ito yan, y sub 1, that is y sub 1, and then you subtract from it y sub 2, that is the height of the element. So if you are going to notice, this is just simply the area of the element, wherein dx is the width and y sub 1 minus y sub 2 is the height. So you multiply height with the width, you determine an area, di ba? Okay. So since you have the area y sub 1 minus y sub 2, and you have the element which is which has a width dx, then you are going to determine the area given that yung element will be moving from a certain point to another point. From one point to another, that means from x sub 1 to x sub 2. So if you have a minimum value of x sub 1 and a maximum value of x sub 2, you're going to determine the integral of the area bounded by the curve and the line. So the area bounded by the curve and the line is simply given by y sub 1 minus y sub 2, which is simply the height of this element, and you multiply it by the width of the same element. So that is the area of the curve. The same is true if you are going to determine area for a curve or a parabola bounded by the parabola and the line, wherein the parabola or the curve is opening to the left or to the right. Okay? Ang difference lang yan, ngayon, yung element natin, ito na yung element natin. Okay? So, the same pa rin. Area ng element, you determine the integral from a certain value, pero this time, ang value na natin will be simula dito hanggang doon. So, ibig sabihin, ang nagva-vary sa atin ngayon ay ang gagamitan natin ng integral is a minimum value ng y sub 1 hanggang dun sa maximum value na y sub 2. Okay? So, this time, ito na yung element natin. So, yung element natin ngayon, ang height niya naman ay yung d sub y at ang width niya yung distance from x sub 1 minus the x sub 2. So, you just simply make use of area here. So, you would notice, ang ginamit natin dito ay yung x and then yung height na dy. Okay? Dun sa nauna, ang ginamit natin, y sub 1 minus y sub 2 tapos yung width na d sub x. D sub x. So but basically ang formula na yan is for the area. So again, area yun ng carb. So ibig sabihin itong element na to will be moving from this point hanggang doon sa point na yon, sa y sub 2. From y sub 1 papunta doon sa y sub 2, yung element will be moving. Okay? So that is how you determine the area of the carb. And the line. I mean the area bounded by the carb and the line. Okay? Malinaw po ba tayo doon? Did I make myself clear? Okay. So this might probably be the figure. How do we determine whether the carb will be, by the way, this is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. Okay. So if this is the origin, okay, we are just going to determine first whether we have a center at point of origin or a center at a certain value of x and k. Kasi yung parabola, di ba? If you're going to go back in your parabola, yung basic natin ng parabola, bukod dun sa opening nung parabola, meron din tayong consideration with regards to whether the parabola has a center at point of O, or meaning at the point of origin, or at a certain H and K, di ba? So meron tayong ganong klase ng parabola. Dalawang klase din yun ng parabola. Bukod dun sa type ng parabola na opening up, opening down, to the left and to the right. So dalawa pa rin yung ating i-consider. Whether the parabola would have a center at the point of origin or at HK. So in this particular condition, dahil meron tayong given na equation, so if we are going to find the area bounded by this curve, which is given as 2x squared plus 4x plus y is equals to 0, and the line x plus y is equals to 0, we might as well first determine and express, x in terms of y or y in terms of x, vice versa. So how do we go about it? Let's go first with this equation. So you have 2x squared plus 4x plus y is equals to 0. If you are going to rewrite that equation, that can be rewritten as 2x squared plus 4x is equals to negative y. So what I did was, anong ginawa lang natin? So what we did was to, taas natin ng konti para you can have a better view of this. You have 2x squared plus 4x is equals to negative y. Kaya lang ginawa natin? We just express x in terms of y. In other words, we just transpose y to the other side of the equation so that lahat ng merong x variable nandun sa left side ng equation, yung lahat ng may y variable nandun sa other side of the equation. So you have 2x squared plus 4x is equals to negative y. So since meron tayo ditong 2x squared and 4x, we can determine a common factor for this. So what's the common factor of this? Ano ang common factor nito?
2x.
Ano? Expressing only the coefficient. Kasi we have to express x in terms of y. Anong common factor? We have a common factor of
2 po.
2. Okay, so you have a common factor of 2. That would be x squared plus 4x is equals to negative y. What do you notice with x squared plus 4x? Sorry, this one is 2. X squared plus 2x. Going back in your algebra, anong klase ng polynomial ito? Just to have a review. By the way, what do you mean? So again, from 2x squared plus 4x, which was equals to negative y because we transpose y to the other side of the equation. And then we made use of a common factor 2. Then we have x squared plus 2x, which is a perfect square trinomial in the case in that we have x squared plus 2x plus 1. So since we added up 2 here, then we are going to add up 2 on the other side of the equation. And then further simplifying the equation, it would yield to a value of negative y plus 2 is equals to 2 times x plus 1 squared. So that means we have x plus 1 squared is equals to negative 1 half y minus 2. Then, what would happen now? So if you would notice, what kind of parabola is this? Pag ganito yung parabola natin, x plus 1 squared is equals to negative 1 half y minus 2. The parabola will be definitely opening either
Upward or downward po.
upward or downward. So how do we know whether it really is upward or downward?
Sa sign po.
Yan. Doon sa sign ng alin?
Yung pong kabilang side.
Ayan, doon sa y, di ba? Doon sa value ng y. So kung ang value ng y natin dahil ang value ng y natin dito ay negative, in other words, the parabola is opening
Downward.
downward. Okay, so tama na yung figure natin. The parabola is opening downward. Further examining or further examination of the equation, the center of the parabola will be at what? Instead of having it at the point of origin, dahil meron tayo dito na x plus 1 squared is equals to negative 1 half y minus 2. In other words, the parabola will be opening at h and k, wherein h will be equal to and k will be equal to. So how do we determine the value of h? If you equate x plus 1 to 0, what will be the value of x? Equate.
Negative 1.
Okay, so that means what is the value for h?
Negative 1 din po.
Negative 1. Very good. So that means the value here is negative 1. So since you have the value of h, which is negative 1, what about for the value of k? Now,
Positive 2 po.
positive? Positive what?
Positive 2 po.
Positive 2. So we are just going to equate y minus 2 is equals to 0. So k is equals to positive 2. Okay. So now you would know that the parabola is now opening down. Okay, definitely opening down. And that the value of h and k, the center, is at negative 1 and positive 2, meaning not that at the point of origin. So if you are going to locate the center, this is the point wherein you have negative 1 and positive 2. Negative 1 for the x and positive 2. You would notice that if this is the point of origin, negative 1 will be on this side, positive 2 for y is on the upper side. Okay? So, tama yung figure natin. Negative 1, dahil ito yung point of origin natin, kung mag-count ka ng negative 1 from the point of origin, yun ay papunta sa left nung y-axis. positive 2, kung mag-count ka ng positive 2, from the x-axis, papunta naman dun sa taas, positive 2. Okay. So that means you have negative 1 and then positive 2 here. So what we are now going to do? You have now the value for the parabola. How about for the line? You would notice that for the line, we have x plus y is equals to 0. If x plus y is equals to 0, then that means x is equals to what?
Zero po.
X is equals to what is x? If x plus y is equals to 0, what's the value of x?
Zero po.
Negative 2.
Negative y.
Negative y. Lipat natin doon sa kabilang side, di ba? Okay, negative y. Or y is equals to what? What's the
Negative x.
negative x? Very good. Okay. That means x is equals to negative y is equals to negative x. Diba? So that means that is the line. This is the line. If this is the curve, this is the curve that we have 2x squared plus 4x plus y is equals to 0. This one is the line. This one is the line. And then we have here x plus y is equals to 0. Okay? So, now, we are going to determine, ang kulang natin ngayon, para makuha natin itong area, kasi the question is the area bounded by the curve and the line. So, meaning, this area, in below the curve and above the line. Okay. And that would yield to 2x plus 3 equals to 0. If you're going to transpose x to the other side of the equation, simply equals to 2x plus 3 equals to 0. Is that correct? Okay. So that means what will be the value for x? In this case, 2x plus 3 is equals to 0. X will be equals to what? That would be 2x is equals to negative 3, and therefore x is equals to, what's the value? Negative 3 halves. If x is negative 3 halves and x is equals to negative y, so that means the value for y is equals to x is equals to negative 3 halves and y is equals x is equals to negative 1, or y is equals to negative x, then y will be equals to positive 3 halves. Okay? So that means this point is at the point wherein you have negative 3 halves. So let me just erase this one para mas malinaw. Lagay natin doon sa kabilang side. Lipat na lang natin. Okay. So if this is the line, then we have negative 3 halves for x. And then, of course, you have positive 3 halves for y. Okay? Minus 3 halves and positive 3 halves for y. Okay? Any question before I proceed? Because I will be erasing this side of the equation. May question pa kayo to determine? So this is the line and this is the curve. And then we have to determine the area bounded by this one. So that means if we are going to represent an element, this is dx. And then of course, this is y sub 2 and this is y sub 1. So that means the height of the element is simply y sub 1 minus y sub 2. So what we are going to use is the formula y sub 1 minus y sub 2, and then you multiply it by d sub x. That is simply the area of the element. Now, our limit will be from this point to this point. So the minimum value of x and the minimum value of y. So the minimum value of x is negative 3 halves. That means the lower limit. And then, of course, you have 0, which is our upper limit. The lower limit is negative 3 halves, and the upper limit is 0, meaning the element will be moving from this point up to this point relative to the value of x. There is a change or variability in the length of the element. So that means our integral will be from a lower limit of negative 3 halves to an upper limit of 0. So you have y sub 1 minus y sub 2, which is the height of the element. And then, of course, d sub x, which is the width of the element. So now we are going to use this integral area is equals to from negative 3 halves to an upper limit of 0. And then, of course, we have the area of the equation of the curves. So if this will be the case, then you can have this as parehas lang to ha. Huwag kayong malilito dun sa sign na gagamitin ko. So negative 2x squared minus 4x plus x times dx. Parehas lang yan. Kung nagbago ka dito sa first, nagbago ka rin doon sa second, nagbago ka rin doon sa third term ng sign. Just to make ganun pa rin yun. Okay? Sinubstitute lang natin yung x, yung value ng y doon sa, yung value ng x doon sa y. Okay? So kung ang positive natin diyan is plus y, it's the same. Okay? So you have negative 2x squared minus 4x plus x times dx. Basically the same. Just rationalize it. Okay? So that means to determine the area, all we have to do is remember the limits, di ba? Yung limits na diniscuss natin dati, all we have to do is to substitute yung value ng upper at saka ng lower limit dun sa equation. Okay? So, it will be the same as saying, you just substitute it. It will be the same as to say, we will have here negative 2x squared minus 4x plus x. How do you integrate 2x squared? What's the integral of 2x squared? Anong integral ng 2x squared? Paano nga ulit natin ini-integrate? Yung exponent, anong ginagawa natin doon sa exponent?
Ginagawa pong coefficient.
Anong ginagawa natin doon sa exponent nung variable?
Ginagawa pong coefficient.
DDX yun, differential yun ha. Pag-integral. Pag-integral, ang gagawin natin ngayon is remain natin yon numerical coefficient. Yung exponent ngayon, ang mangyayari, n plus 1. So, if that would be n plus 1, yung 2 natin magiging 3. And then, gagawin nating denominator. Nakukuha nyo? Pag-integral. Yung sinasabi nyo sa akin kanina is DDX yun. Differential yon. Ginagawa natin yung exponent plus 1, binababa natin tapos nag-a-add tayo dun sa taas, dun sa exponent ng 1. Dito, ang ginawa natin integral. Okay? So, we have here, say for example, integral of x squared, x to the n. The integral of x to the n is x to the n plus 1 over n plus 1. Okay? You just add 1 to the exponent and then gagawin natin yung n plus 1 na denominator. Okay, so that's integral. If you're going to go back to your formula corner there, so integral yon. Okay? Then, what about 4x? Okay. 4x plus negative 3, negative x, diba? Ito yung 3x na to. So, how about 3x? What's the integral of 3x? Sige nga. Kung ang 2x squared is 2x cubed over 3, ano ang integral ng 3x? Ito kasi the same din ito ha, yung 4x na yun at saka itong 3x na to. Ano ang integral ng 3x?
X squared over 2.
3?
3x squared over 2.
Very good. So that is 3x squared over 2. And our limit is negative 3 halves over, upper limit is 0. So this one is 3x squared over 2. Huwag kayong malilito ulit ha. Ito lang yung ginawa natin doon, yun yung 3x. Okay? Negative 4x plus x is negative 3x. So minus. Then the integral of 3x is 3x squared over 2. Okay. So because of that, we have the value of lower limit is negative 3 halves and then upper limit is 0. From our limit of a function, all we have to do is to substitute now. All we have to do is to substitute. The area will be equal to negative 2/3. And then the value for x cubed, definitely pag nag-substitute tayo ng 0 dito, 0 na rin yung magiging value niyan. So, negligible or pwede na nating irrelevant na yung value ng 0 natin dito. Okay? So, all we have to do is pwede na nating idiretso dun sa lower limit lang natin na negative 3 halves. All we have to do is to substitute negative 3 halves dun sa value ng x. Okay? So, you have 2/3 times negative 3 halves cubed minus, okay, 3 halves And then you have negative 3 halves squared. And that would yield us to the value of, okay, ito bibilisan ko lang ha, 9/4 minus 27/8. Or that's equals to 9/8 square units. And this will be our answer. Paki-calculate nyo na lang, paki-double check nyo if I have a correct answer here. Okay. Para dun sa 9/4. Pwede nyo nang i-calculate.